Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. I had been saving up for years to finally buy a little vacation cabin up in the mountains. It was my dream to have a cozy place to get away from the noise and stress of the city. After scrimping and saving every penny, I was finally able to make an offer on a cute A-frame cabin nestled in the woods. It needed some work, but I was handy and loved the challenge of fixing it up. The day I got the keys, I drove up eager to start personalizing the place. But as I pulled up the long driveway, my jaw dropped in disbelief. There were cars crammed everywhere, music blasting, and people wandering around my yard with drinks in hand. I got out of my car and walked up to a couple who seemed to be hosting the party. "Excuse me, what's going on here?" I asked. The woman looked at me like I had two heads. It's our weekend party, obviously," she said in a snotty tone. "I'm afraid there's been some mistake. I just bought this cabin last week." The woman laughed. "Oh, honey, we have a lifetime lease on this place for our parties. The previous owner promised it to us before he sold it." I was floored. A lifetime lease for parties? That couldn't be legal. Her husband stepped up and got in my face. "Look, we've been throwing parties here every weekend for 2 years. We paid that old geezer a hefty sum for the rights, so don't think you can swoop in and ruin our fun." I stood my ground. "I have the deed right here, and there's no mention of any lease. I'm going to have to ask you and all your guests to leave immediately." The couple just snorted and ignored me, heading back to their party. I felt my blood boiling. I called the police, and several officers soon arrived to break things up. The entitled couple threw a fit, screaming about their rights and how I was destroying their lives. Too bad. My rights came first as the legal property owner. In the following weeks, I sought legal advice about the supposed lifetime lease. My lawyer laughed and said it was completely unenforceable. We sent the couple cease and desist letters, but they kept trying to host their destructive parties. One Saturday afternoon, I came up to the cabin to find cars filling the driveway yet again. Loud dubstep music made the windows rattle. I saw red and called the police once more. This time I pressed charges for trespassing. The couple finally got the message when they had to haul themselves into court. They tried to claim that the previous owner had given them verbal permission for unlimited parties. But with no proof, the judge wasn't having it. She ordered them to stay 100 feet from my property at all times. For a while, they still parked just down the road on weekends and hiked to the cabin attempting to party on the porch. But I installed security cameras and bright floodlights to deter them. A few well-placed hunting traps in the surrounding woods didn't hurt either. Eventually they gave up for good, grumbling about me being a psycho party pooper. Peace and quiet returned to my mountain sanctuary at last. I was able to focus on renovating the cabin into a comfortable retreat with my own touches. Now I can enjoy lazy weekends fishing on the lake, reading on the porch, and stargazing by the fire pit. No more pounding music and drunken strangers ruining my time in nature. With the nuisance couple gone for good, I finally have my perfect vacation cabin just as I dreamed. The moral of the story? Don't ever assume someone's claims about a property are valid without doing your own due diligence. And don't be afraid to stand up for your rights as the legal owner, even if it means calling the authorities. The law's on your side when squatters or scammers try manipulating you. A little perseverance goes a long way in reclaiming your personal paradise. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to enjoy some rest and relaxation in my hard-earned cabin in the woods. The next one is a pro-revenge story. My significant other and I were renting a ground floor unit at a really nice apartment complex. I wouldn't say it was a luxury apartment or anything, but our ground floor unit had a little patio off the back that led out into a really nice courtyard area with hammocks, a walking path, an outdoor fireplace/seating area, etc. A lot of people walk their dogs out there or let their kids play in the grass, including us. We have a 1-year-old Cane Corso. We got her when we'd been living in the unit for about 2.5 months, and she was only 8 weeks old at the time. She's a really good dog, and we trained her well. We could let her out to go potty, and she'd come right back even if there were distractions, people, or other dogs out. We always stood on the patio and watched her anyways because our pet agreement said we couldn't leave our dog unattended. Then we'd go pick up her poop right away if she pooped. Also part of the pet agreement, as I'm sure is standard at most apartment complexes. We kept a small step trash can outside specifically for her poop bags, because we didn't want to throw them away inside, and the only outside trash cans were on the other side of the building, which I agree is super dumb. It really was a small trash can, like the kind you'd tuck into the bathroom between the toilet and the wall. We also had our poop bags hanging on our patio door handle for easy access, so we didn't have to hunt for them every time we needed them. This lady and her kid moved into the ground floor unit in our building, 2 units down from us. No biggie. We ran into her one day carrying groceries, and my SO held open the door for her. She seemed kind of Karenish, but was polite, and her kid, probably 10, 11 years old, didn't look up from his phone. Whatever. That's pretty typical of kids these days. They also had a dog, a little black and white fluffy thing, super cute, but not trained very well. Don't know what kind of dog, but it was much smaller than our already giant puppy. After about 2 weeks or so, we realized that there were dog turds in the grass right off our patio. We found out the hard way because my boyfriend stepped in it the first time. Luckily, he wasn't barefoot. They were clearly not our dog's turds as one. We always picked up her poop right after she went, and 2. They were very obviously from a small dog, not our 70-pound puppy. We'd been in the apartment about 8 months at that point and had never had an issue with this, so we figured it was EM's little dog. I wrote her a polite note that basically said, "Hey neighbor, we noticed that some of your dog's poops aren't being picked up and are right off our patio. Per the pet agreement we all have to sign, we all need to be picking up our own dog's poop each time they go. I'm sure it was an accident and you just didn't notice. So if you could make sure to do that going forward, we'd appreciate it. Your neighbors in Unit Hash." She wasn't home, so I slipped it under the door and went back to my apartment. A couple of hours later, this lady is banging on my door and gets really angry with me, insisting that it couldn't have been her dog, and how dare I assume. I felt really bad, and I apologized immediately, said I didn't mean to offend her, and it must have been someone else. She told me never to bother her with crap like this again, and stormed off. I was like, okay. Not 3 days later, I was sitting on my patio with a book, enjoying the cool weather when I saw their little dog run out of their back door, no one with it, and it came over to me. I said hello to the pup because I love pups, and then it took a poop right off my patio, ran back home and scratched the door to be let in. I saw her kid slide the door open enough to let the dog in and then close it again without coming outside to pick up the poop. I was annoyed because here I saw it with my own eyes that it was their dog, and no one was even watching it when it was outside. So I grabbed a poop bag, picked up the poop, wrote another less polite note about her kid neglecting to watch the dog or come to check if it had pooped / pick up after it, and dropped the poop bag and the note on their patio right by the door, then went back to my reading. EM was quicker to come by this time and stomped right up to me, waving the note around. Then she stated that her kid was just a kid and probably just forgot to check. I said I didn't care. Her kid was old enough to stand outside for 3 minutes and come pick up the dog's poop. She said, well, there's no poop bags / trash cans on this side of the building, and she didn't feel comfortable making her kid walk all the way around the building for that. The next part is my own fault in hindsight. I suggested she put a trash can like mine on her patio and leave their poop bags handy like we do for our dog. She eyed our stuff, huffed some more, rolled her eyes, refused to do anything about the poop, and walked off. At this point, I was super annoyed. I stalked my patio door for the next couple of days as much as I could, just waiting. And sure enough, on day 2 in the evening when I was about to give up, I saw the puppy run outside toward my patio. I whipped out my phone, took some pictures of the dog outside alone, not allowed, and the dog pooping, and then took another photo an hour later of the poop still there, and time-stamped all of them. Then I sent an email to the apartment office people who were always pretty nice, and they responded quickly that they would give her a warning about it. And sure enough, this lady comes back again to get mad and yell at me about how petty I was to report them to the office, and now they had a $150 fine for not picking up their dog poop. It's worth noting that these fines were rare. Poo prints were not used at this complex. In order for the office to fine someone for dog poop, they had to have proof it was that specific tenant's dog's poop and that it wasn't picked up. Hence the photos I'd taken and time-stamped. I told her that I had tried to be nice about it with her twice before, and it was her own fault at that point for not abiding by the terms of the pet agreement we all had to sign, everyone who had a dog at least. She went off about how she's a single mom, and she works during the day, and her precious baby can't be expected to pick up after their dog. I told her that a 10-11-year-old was plenty old enough to pick up after a dog, and that if they weren't responsible enough, then maybe the kid shouldn't be letting the dog out at all, and she should be the one to do it. Or maybe whoever is home with him should be looking after it. She got angry, told me I had no idea how to be a single mom, that her mom stays with him during the day and shouldn't be expected to look after her kid and her dog, and she stomped off again. I expected to hear more about it, but I didn't. The ironic part is I am a single mom. My kid isn't my SO's, and I raised him alone for 2.5 years before I met my SO. So yes, I do know how hard it is, and I live 1,000 miles from my closest family, so I never even had the luxury of being able to have my mom watch my kid. Over the next couple of weeks, we didn't find any more dog turds off our patio, but we did notice our poop bags were depleting and our trash can filling up way more quickly than usual. I had my suspicions and wanted to test it. We had recently bought some small security cameras for inside of our apartment for different reasons, and I had my boyfriend set one up outside on the patio. We faced it where it could see our door and trash can but didn't point to the rest of the courtyard or other people's units. We respect privacy around here. Sure enough, the same evening my boyfriend set it up, I see the kid walk onto our patio, take a poop bag, walk out of frame, and then come back to throw it in our trash can. Okay, now I'm pissed, but also not trying to fight this lady or her kid. So I moved the poop bags to the inside door handle. It's a glass door, so you can still see them, but we always lock our sliding door. The next morning I heard someone knocking on the back patio door, and I go to see her kid standing there looking annoyed. I didn't open the door. I just spoke loudly enough to ask what he needed. He demanded a poop bag for his dog's poop. I said I'm sorry, but these are our poop bags for our dog, and they weren't free for anyone else to use. The apartment provides poop bags in a dispenser near the trash can on the other side of the building. The kid started demanding a poop bag, saying his mom told him he could use ours, slapping his hands on the glass a few times, trying to scare me. Yes, I'm so terrified of a 10-year-old boy, and finally screaming at me that he's telling his mother on me. I said, fine, go ahead, I'll tell her the same thing. Sure enough, a few minutes later, his mom is standing on my patio also demanding a poop bag for her dog's poop. I denied her a bag and asked her to please step off my patio as she was making me feel unsafe and uncomfortable. My SO wasn't home. She told me I was a bratty child, I'm 24, and she demanded I let her use my poop bags, as I had already told her she could before. I said no, I told you to get some yourself and do what I do. Keep them close by and put your own trash can on your patio. Not use the bags I buy with my own money for my own dog and then fill up my tiny trash can with your dog's poop. I pointed out she could use a plastic shopping bag if she didn't want to buy her own poop bags, or she could use the bags the complex provided on the other side of the building. She kept going off on me, and I finally told her if she didn't leave my patio, I'd call the police as she was harassing me. The apartment office was closed on Sundays, and of course it was Sunday. She acted like she was going to call my bluff, but then my boyfriend got home and walked up behind me to ask what was going on, and she ended up dragging her kid away. Again, leaving the poop in the grass off my patio. So, once she was gone, I took another time-stamped picture of the dog poop, downloaded the footage from my security camera of her kid stealing my poop bags and throwing them in my trash can, and the footage from them that morning yelling at me and demanding my bags and my denying them, and emailed all of it to the apartment management. I told them that she made me feel unsafe and uncomfortable in my own home, that she and her child felt entitled to come onto my patio and take my belongings. I also went outside, picked up her dog's poop, looked in the trash can on my patio, and pulled out the bags with her dog's poop. They were significantly smaller than my dog's poops, as I'm sure any dog owners could tell the difference in poops of a 12-pound dog versus a 70-pound dog. I went and opened all the bags and dumped the poops straight on her patio right outside the door. On Monday, I heard back from the office lady who said she would take care of it. By Friday, there was a moving truck and the lady and her kid were moving out. Pretty sure they were evicted or at the very least urged to move before a formal eviction process was initiated. After talking to some of our other much friendlier neighbors, it turns out we weren't the only ones who had been complaining about her. They'd only lived in the complex for like 2-3 months before they made so many enemies they were kicked out. Sometimes I think I should feel bad for playing a part in them getting evicted, but honestly, I can't bring myself to feel guilty about it. Not my fault she was a lazy, entitled person who couldn't even be bothered to get a shopping bag to pick up her dog's waste. I never heard from her about the turds I dropped on her patio, but I like to think she stepped in them without looking and knew better than to come complain to me about it. The next one is a petty revenge story. I used to work in a call center where everyone had little cubicles. You could chat with people on either side or behind you if things got slow, but anyone on the other side of the divider was sort of hard to see or chat with. This is only important because Karen was in this hard-to-see location from me. I have issues with overheating medical stuff. I like to sit right under the AC vent. Nobody fought me for this because it was a little too cold for most people. Well, being a woman, this meant that sometimes I had some nipple protrusion issues on some days. It's perfectly natural, and to most people, not noticeable because it was under my shirt and bra. Karen noticed this and made a report to HR. The HR woman and my direct supervisor paraded me through the cubicles and into their office to question me about my nipples. Now I could have thrown a fit about this to begin with since we didn't actually have a dress code, and it's none of their damn business. They asked me to prove I was wearing a bra, so I showed them the straps. They told me good enough, basically, and asked me to go back to my desk. I refused to go back. I said I needed to file a complaint about someone. They asked me who I was reporting. I said, I don't know, but you do. I want to report whoever it was that's been staring at my breasts all day. Now that I know someone is staring, I feel like this is a hostile work environment. They acted like I was joking at first until I said, if you don't have a talk with them, I will go over your heads and report you for forcing me to reveal my bra to you. I got escorted back to my desk and Karen was sitting there looking smug, until they escorted her to the HR office instead. I don't know what happened to her in the office, and I didn't care. They did their part by having their talk with her. All I really wanted was to know who did it. Since it was a very slow day, all my coworkers started asking me what that was all about. Office gossip, you know. I told everyone exactly what had happened, and added that Karen must be fascinated with my breasts since she noticed. Everyone else confirmed they didn't even notice. When she came back from HR, every person in the room knew what she had done and was glaring at her. Snitches didn't get stitches and didn't get fired either. But they got treated like the Karen they were. Nobody would talk to her. People would be chatting, see her come try to join the conversation and go silent and turn away from her. Some people did loud whispers and made comments like, shh, don't say anything, she will report you. She quit about 2 weeks later. The next one is a malicious compliance story. In the city, if you can call it that, with a population of approximately 3,000 where I grew up, there were a few projects-type places, but mostly poor white people. It was like a trailer park, but more white trash and less space. We lived in the slightly nicer one. Your townhouse, if you got one, had a 4 feet by 4 feet patio, slightly bigger if you shared it with a neighbor. Well, my mom and aunts went outside to drink, and it became a big deal. I literally forgot the title for the woman who sits in an office and collects rents and complaints for the management company. I'll call her Karen, as that was her name. Karen tells Mom she can't have parties. Mom says it's not a party, but everyone has parties, especially for kids' birthdays. Karen says that's not what she meant. So Mom says, you mean an adult party? What do you classify as an adult party? We had just moved from the country, and parties were lots of guests, music, booze, and late nights. At least 3 people joining the breakfast table the next morning. Karen says it's a party if it has booze. Mom says no, beer doesn't make a party, or her after-dinner beer was a sad-ass party. Karen says booze and friends with music make a party. Mom says, well, I was drinking with family and no music, so not a party. Karen says, well, you were outside. You can't drink outside because it's in public. My mother says I was on my patio, which I rent, watching the kids, so it wasn't in public. Karen caves, fine, it's not a party if you are on your patio and don't have music. She sends the memo out to every tenant, even the 12 apartment shoeboxes that have one patio at the 2 exits. So all the tenants came out to the patios. Some patios had music going and some had beer, but everyone was drinking. Karen calls the cops. The cops start with Mom, her yard is full. The yard is a small amount of grass shared between the neighbors but is closest to Mom's apartment. This is a party. Mom says no, those are teenagers and kids playing in the yard, and I am sitting on my patio having a beer and watching. There's music. The neighbor sitting next to Mom speaks up, that's from my patio, the kids are dancing. Public intoxication? Nope, not intoxicated, not in public. They proceed to check every single patio. No one had both music and beer, and each radio was just loud enough to hear. Even the shoeboxes had a few apartments playing the same radio station with the windows open. They even tried stopping people walking to a different patio. None of them had an open beer while moving. Although one guy did dump his beer into a soda can and walked behind the cops. Since they couldn't find a neighbor that was complaining, they just told Karen that there wasn't a party, but neighbors visiting other neighbors and kids listening to the radios. It became a thing every Friday and Saturday. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.